wealth of more than 20 years of experience in academics, human resource operations, sales, learning and development, and psychological consulting to over 10,000 individuals. We offer the best of us to all our clients and individuals. Our workshops are highly effective in personal transformation, behavioral change, performance management, healing, and wellness. We use scientific methodology of neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive psychology, behavioral science, human potential movement, and principles of management. So Dominion Phillips is a CPD, continuing professional development member and provider. CPD is the term used to describe the commitment to lifelong learning, a skill that is invaluable to all people across every segment of society. Continuing professional development is a large holistic approach to concept of professionalism. CPD combines different methodologies to learning such as training, workshops, conferences, and events, e-learning programs, best practice techniques, and idea sharing, all focused for individuals to improve their personal proficiencies. This membership gives our product, the CPD UK credentials, which is recognized worldwide by multinational companies, governments, and academicians. So, Philips Consultancy believes in synergy and collaboration with leaders and organizations to build people and nations at large. So these are our international and national associates: Monica Matthews, Keith Antoine, Inita Seema Enterprise, Dr. Dipti Christian, and we are glad to have Mr. Keith Antoine with us. So I'll give again a very brief introduction about Robina Phillips. Robina Phillips is the Director Training and Psychological Consulting of Dominion Phillips Consultancy. She is a consulting psychologist and principal consultant trainer. In her 20 years of career, she has been functioning in human resource operations, training, and psychological consulting. She is an executive coach and psychological counselor with more than 8,000 hours of counseling and coaching sessions. She has facilitated with thousands of hours in training and workshops in MNCs, NGOs, engineering, and management colleges. About Ajay Phillips, he is an entrepreneur and principal training consultant, Meta NLP master practitioner, and a certified NLP life coach. He is a visionary and has the passion to build people as stable and strong global citizens. He has over 25 years of experience in learning and development, skill development, corporate training, HR solutions, and academics. And yes, so we conclude, and I hope you have an exciting session.
Okay, thank you, Advocate Joanna Phillips, for the wonderful introduction. Once again, to all those who are joining on behalf of Dominion Phillips and Slum Soccer, we are glad to bring you on to this international webinar with the key objective to talk on the key skills for 21st century. As times have changed, it's very important to upgrade and to move ahead of time. So both our speakers, Mr. Barse, Professor Barse, and Mr. Anton will give us a lot of insight on this particular topic, as it's the industrial revolution age 4.0, the age of digital, the age of virtual world, the age of AI. Are we really ready to deal with people and performance? That's the question I would leave you with. And this also is an inaugural event for one of the key skilled programs that we are doing with Keith Anton. It's a privilege. And the program name is ICC, that's International Coaching Certification, which will also be accredited by a very world-renowned UK body. So we already have our first batch is full. We just have 2 seats. And of course, the registrations are on, so we will be sharing details with you as well. So for now, I would be glad to invite Devika Sen to have our guest speaker, Professor Vijay Barse, introduced. An incredible dynamic personality. We are so privileged to have him with us. Yes, Devika, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Good evening to all of you. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So it's my privilege to be on this platform on behalf of Slum Soccer. And it's my honor to introduce the dynamic personality and founder of Slum Soccer, Mr. Vijay Barse. He was a professor of sports in Hislop College for 36 years. And how the idea of slum soccer came to his mind, he will tell you more about in detail. But in a rainy day, he saw few slum children playing with a broken bucket in a ground. So he just thought, if we give a football to kick, how they will react, how they will engage. So we work on a very basic philosophy like football for all, and we work with slum children and youth through the medium of football. Can you please move on to next slide?
Next one.
We have different kind of projects. Yes, next one. Yes. So we have different kind of projects. Apart from working with communities and slum communities, we are working with government and low income group school as well. Educate is the program which focuses on the promotion of primary education for children. We work with fourth and fifth class children through the medium of football, and we teach them life skills, English and mathematics through football. And the second project we have is with specifically for our girls participants, where we give the equal opportunity for them to play the football. And the Shaktigal program supports women football development to address gender discrimination, as well as we spread awareness about menstrual hygiene. And this is all done through the football sessions. Third is Generation Amazing pitches. We are in collaboration with Generation Amazing. We have developed 4 pitches all over India, and these football pitches are based in communities where football facilities are not available. Please move on to the next slide. Deaf Kids Goal. This is the pilot project we started last year. And in this project, we are working with deaf school children, and we are teaching and training deaf adults to be deaf coaches. So in this particular project, we deal with their rights, awareness about their safety and the life skills. And this is the first time in India that in January we have organized a tournament where the hearing children and the deaf children played in the same team as a combination of team with special rules. And the other project is Game Changer, where from 25 states, we select 100 participants and train them for 3 modules for their professional and individual development, so they can go back to their communities and work with their communities through the medium of football. And the last one is community center project. This is the basic project of slum soccer, where we reach out to slum communities, underprivileged communities, and through the football sessions, we teach them life skills, create awareness about hygiene and health. Next slide, please. We conduct various tournaments. Yes, we conduct various tournaments, state tournaments, which are conducted through and by our partners deployed in 25 states across India. And from these states, 600 participants participate in National Inclusion Cup, which is being supported by Sony Pictures Network Private Limited from past 3 years. and the last edition was concluded in Goa in February 2020. And then we have the Homeless World Cup, where around 60 nations participates all over the world, and India is being represented by Slum Soccer since 2007, and we conduct community tournaments on a regular basis. On each and every occasion, we have these tournaments so that participants get a chance to play. And this is our impact. We have partners over 24 states all over the India. Till now, we have built 5 football pitches, and this is the 3,500 Shakti girls and MHM, 1,600 school, 6,400 participants. This is the annual reach we have yearly, and we train 600 youth leaders across from 29 states. Next slide, please. Mr. Barse has received Reliance Real Hero Award with the hands of Mr. Sachin Tendulkar. And we have received Manthan eNGO Award in 2012. FICCI India Sports Award for Best NGO Promoting Sports in 2014. And we are the first NGO in India who has received FIFA Diversity Award in 2016. We have also received FICCI Gender Diversity Award in 2018. As you can see, football unites. This is the motto of Slum Soccer. Next slide, please. These are our partners, and as we can see that collaboration and partnership brings amazing results, just like this session, this webinar. Next slide, please. And here I conclude. Over to you, Rowena.
Thank you so much, Devika. I think we have a profound work and profound introduction of our guest speaker now, without keeping the participants or the audience otherwise on all platforms wait. I will hand over to our really dynamic and incredible person, Professor Vijay Barse. Over to you. So please.
Hello, Rowena.
Hello.
Thank you to Devika.
Hello.
And pleased to see, and I'm very happy to be with. Actually, I am not dynamic. Everybody is saying that we're dynamic person. I don't think that I am dynamic, because you persons, you all are dynamic. That's why, and only you are dynamic. That's why I can sit before you. I'm really thankful to you. I am also thankful to be with our Olympian guest. This is a great privilege for me that such a big personality, big Paralympian. This is my first time to be with such a great personality. Rowena Philip, I'm really thankful to you that you have given me this opportunity to talk with all these dynamic personalities. Slum Soccer is working in this area from last 20 years. 2001, we started this program in India. When we started, it was only as a Jhopadpatti football, because you know the word for slum in India, we use that slum area as a Jhopadpatti area. So I started this work, or you can say this this novel idea, I get it from this slum area only. As Devika says that one a rainy day, I saw some children, some kids from the slum area were playing in the muddy ground. They were playing, they were simply kicking the broken plastic bucket. But while kicking that bucket, they were not kicking that bucket, they were enjoying while kicking that bucket. And that enjoyment, what they were getting was very different. And it touched my heart that that within that short span, half an hour I was there, and I was getting inspired by just by looking to them that these children uh, they are playing with a broken bucket, but not that was actually game. In uh, my opinion, it was not a game. It was some changing period for them. I was thinking that if I give them real football and if I call them on the real football ground or spending their some time with me or playing football, I was thinking that I can give them some good time to by playing this football, some good time uh, on the ground. And during this good time, whatever they were spending with me on the ground, I was studying that very minutely. I was looking at them. That's some children. Nobody smoked. Nobody did any bad thing. Nobody any use bad word. Nothing, nothing, nothing. But they were simply enjoying on the ground by playing football. And there I get this idea that if I give them this football and if I organize as a football tournament, I call them on the ground during this period, all they will be away from all the bad things. And I started this thing in 2001. I call 2001, I call my friends, media friends, and give them this idea that if we can arrange this tournament from this children, this will be something different. This football is something different. That regular football, they had their own ideas, own rules, each and everything is perfect manner. But here is not perfect manner. Here we'll organize this football for these some children who don't know any football rule. Even we don't want that they should play according to a football rules, because I was known that they don't know any football rules. They don't know. They never get the chance to play the football also. So I give them a simple idea that you just the two teams will there. Will start the match. Who will score the goal? We will give the score. Yes, it is goal. No offside rule. Nothing big rule. Simply, if you just kick in the goal post, it will be goal. Because the players, they're from slum, even their officials, their referees, they were also from the slum. So even they don't know the rules. That's why simple rule that you just kick the ball in the goal, we will count that as a goal. So by this way, I started this Jopalpatti football. The very beginning, very first year, I get a huge response from the slums. First year, we get 128 teams from Nagpur slums. I started this slum soccer from Nagpur. So in first year, uh, we get a huge response, such as 128 teams. Then second year, I request my some friends just to provide food and shelter so that we can call this outside teams, slum teams. We can call them at Nagpur and we will organize the tournament for 3 days. So between these 3 days, you just help me just to provide some football, some food and shelter. So they came forward, they gave me the helping hand Second year, in 2002, I organized a state level tournament. Third year, by the help of this uh, print media and electronic media, this news spread all over the India. And then other state also started to inquire about this, what is this soccer, how about the rule and how you are organizing this tournament. I was knowing that this all teams or whatever or whoever is inquiring about this tournament, they all are belonging to slum areas only. So I was knowing that they don't have money, they don't have anything. Simply they are interested to come forward, and that was very good thing, a very good sign for me that my mission was going from Nagpur to state and national level. So uh, I was very much inspired by all these things, and I asked them to come to Nagpur. So we'll organize first ever this national tournament. So in 2003, I organized this tournament on national level. I get response from 16 states. At present, in this 2020, our 17th national was there. This year, 24 states participated in our national tournament. So this is our journey. But my focus is not, or my mission is not to teach them football. My mission is that through football, I want to change their personality, their behavior, their life. Because the children from slum area, what their life is, where are they, and what they are doing, what is their regular life. I was thinking that I can change their life by calling them on the football ground for playing football matches, to keep them engaged with me. I started these things, and this is my mission. And I, uh, through all of you, and through all my uh, these helping hands, my volunteers, my all these supporters, sponsors. Now we have started many other projects also, because not only this football fraternity, but the social responsibility. We are doing our social job for development of society. We are working. We have started through our study. We have started. We have uh, ourselves. We have uh, started many new projects, many new things through football, and our volunteers are successfully doing that things. At present, my job is that just to push them, just to call them together, just to them together, and say few words with them, and they get inspired and they started this very simple thing, that football can change the life. This is my mission, and I am working for them. Thank you, Ravina. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Barse, for being with us and for contributing to these lives is an inspiration to everybody. I see in the comments, people are already inspired and they're putting some great comments, and that's what you not only change these lives but also inspired so many other people across the world to do and look at things differently. That one thought of seeing the children playing in the rain has evolved to this great idea and this massive work. We really, really appreciate you being here with us. I have put in the comment in the chat box that the participants can ask both speakers questions at the end of the session, maybe around 6:15. So we request everybody to stay till the end. Thank you so much. I would like to add over here.
Welcome, Mr. Barse and Mr. Anton. It is a great pleasure for us to hear from you, and especially I just want to add over here with regards to Mr. Barse is that he is a case study in IIMs across India and other management institutions, that how a small step can really transform the lives of people and evolve and develop skills. Otherwise, it would have not. So this is something very great. You know, it looks small, but it is very powerful. And we really acknowledge and appreciate the work which Professor Barse has initiated and working on since years together now. And I have seen him, 30 years ago, as a professor, but now what I see him as a person who has, you know, changed lives. And that is the mission we also carry in transformation, transforming lives. And I really appreciate and thank Mr. Barse.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Vijay.
much.
Thank you so much. So I'm glad to introduce to you now Mr. Keith Anton, and he will again be telling us more about the key skills, and that's what he does best in bring the best of performance in the people. So I'll quickly just, his profile again is huge, but I've not have a presentation, but I'll surely read out some great things about him. That Keith Anton is a performance coach with corporate and sporting experience in the background, a background in IT and project management for UK and multinational company organizations, together with 3 decades of coaching elite track and field athletics, is a rare combination. As Keith, as a performance coach, Keith has worked globally with organizations from all sectors. He coaches individuals and teams to achieve their chosen outcomes, and his current focus is on developing leaders and critical skills. We are talking about skills. Both the speakers have emphasized on skills of holding effective performance conversations. Over the years, he has blended his sporting and business knowledge and experience to create a unique program which increases the confidence and competence of leaders in this area. Keith also uses his coaching skills to deliver practical, relevant, and thought-provoking keynote presentations. Keith, with a background of IT, has enjoyed long athletic coaching career covering multiple Olympic, Paralympic, World, and European championships. In the 80s and 90s, Keith was Midland Sprints, Hurdles, Relays coach and Great Britain coach for sprint and relay events. He has personally coached many international athletes, some to world and Olympic standard, including Helen Frost, Catherine Murray, and Darren Campbell. From 2000 to 2006, Keith was Great Britain disability sprints coach through the Sydney and Athens Paralympics, returning to London 2012 Paralympics, where his athletes won 1 gold and 2 silver medals, all with personal best performances. The gold rush continued into Rio 2016 Paralympics with Richard Whitehead, and the London 2017 Para Athletics World Championships with Richard and Marlo Van Ridge. He is currently working with Richard through to Tokyo 2020. Some good things have happened during the COVID as well. So we have Keith, else Keith, he would have been in Tokyo. So for that reason, we made the best of you being there. So glad that we had that opportunity. Now, creating the same reputation as a coach in business, author of Working Together in 90 Minutes, Keith's practical approach is engaging and interactive, challenging, and fun. As a coach, improving performance is what Keith does best. Like I said, I have personally been inspired by Keith, and it's still left an impact, even though it's a decade now. And that's the kind of person we have with us, and I'm glad to straight away now give it over to Keith. Welcome once again, Keith. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ravina. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Right then. So look, with where we are now, there is no doubt that times are changing. And I don't just mean because of the pandemic, although that is causing some huge changes all around the globe. But the pace of technology is changing everything and really quickly. As the generations move, the expectations of people are changing. What was acceptable generation, 2 generation, 3 generations ago is no longer acceptable. And we're also seeing that playing out around the world. And with the way things are changing, there's increasing stress, and there's a lot more emphasis on mental health, diversity and inclusion. There is just so much going on. So I thought it might be interesting to look at, well, where have we come from? What has typically been the way that we have looked after things and tried to make things work? And as I look back, it's typically been around knowledge. Knowledge has been the dominant thing. If we wanted to get on, if we wanted to be productive, if we wanted to show how good we are, it's often been around knowledge. We've learned things, we've gone out and acquired knowledge, and that has filled the gap and helped to make us better. And with that knowledge, it gives us more confidence. It helps us to feel that if we know the right things, then we can be right. If we're right, that enables us, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but if we have knowledge, we have experience, that enables us to share that experience, to be able to tell people what to do, advise people, suggest things to people. And if we can do that, that gives us a feeling of, especially when it comes to people, and that's really where I want to focus, it gives us a feeling of being in control. And that can be if we're at work, it can be at home, in household as parents, it can be socially, but it's often been around knowledge. So let me just put some things out there now, which might sound a little strange, but it's just how it comes to me. How does the world look now? Well, I think that if we only stick and rely with knowledge too much, then I think that it's possible for knowledge to be overrated. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it is really possible for knowledge to be overrated. And when it comes to being right, I think what we're now finding is that being right is not enough. When it comes to telling, advising, suggesting, there are times when that might work, but a lot of the time it's actually counterproductive, or sometimes it's a complete waste of time. And as for being in control, yeah, just because we have the knowledge, the expertise, and we feel we're right, if we have the thought that we are ever in control when it comes to people, then we are really fooling ourselves. And I know that things are different in various parts of the world now, but if I look at those things, I look at the way that this pandemic is affecting the UK. The people in charge in the UK thought they had the knowledge, and they made their initial decisions based on that, and that is proving not to be such a good idea. As things are evolving, they're telling people how to behave. And we have recently had a change in our rules now. The rules were being relaxed, and because our cases are going up again, they told people, and you can say on one hand, quite rightly, that meeting in large groups was no longer going to be allowed from tomorrow. So from tomorrow, groups of 6 is the maximum that will be allowed, from 2 families at the most. So they made this announcement on Thursday evening. And so you could say, yes, that makes sense. It's a good thing to do. But just telling people really doesn't work. So what have we found in the last 48 hours is that all of the pubs, the bars, the restaurants have been absolutely full of people going, I'm going to go out and play before the rules change on Monday. It's madness, absolute madness. And so feeling that they're in control because they can make the rules, you can't control people that way. just as always. So let me say, I'm not saying knowledge is a bad thing. I think knowledge is good. Our ability to acquire knowledge and use knowledge is why we are the dominant species on the planet. However, there is a problem when there is an over-reliance on knowledge, particularly with the pace of change that we have to deal with. Think about from your perspective, if your knowledge, your experience, if that is your currency in whatever you do, then actually what happens to the value of your currency when circumstances change? What happens to the value of your currency when somebody else who has more knowledge or more current knowledge or current experience comes along? What happens then? And so I'm not saying that knowledge is a bad thing, but if there's an over-reliance on it, and that's really all that we've got, and we think that's how we bring value, what I'm suggesting here is there is another way or an additional way to bring value. When it's all around knowledge, what happens is we can, I guess, fall into three different categories. There are some, and I'm sure some of you will have heard examples of these. Some people will say, look, this is how it's always been. Maybe they've worked somewhere for a long time. It's always been done this way. And so they stagnate. And if people stagnate, what will happen is now with the pace of change, they will soon be gone. If an organization stagnates, then that organization will soon be gone. It's how it is. Standing still is not an option. There are some people, they recognize stagnating is not good, so they learn. They try and learn lots. And so they try to make sure that their knowledge keeps pace with the pace of change. And I would say that gives them a chance, but only a chance. There's a new category emerging, which are the people that not only work to make sure that their knowledge keeps pace with the change, but also make sure that they can add value to others. And they can enable others to move forward as well. So not just trying to move forward themselves, but enabling others to move forward as well. And these are the people that are a real asset. So we can stagnate, or we can keep pace, or we can keep pace and add. And I wonder which group you would say you fall into. The fact that you're on this webinar would suggest that you're not in the stagnating group. So I'm happy about that. But actually, let's look at it from an organizational point of view. And now I'm just going to let me put these on. So I think, Rowena, you've said that I can share my screen if I try to do that. Let me see if that will allow me to. Okay.
Yes, we can see.
We can
Yeah,
see.
great, brilliant. Okay, so I need to do that. So let's just have a quick look at how people operate. So we got this very simple axis here, and along the bottom, we have what people do. And on the vertical, we've got how they do it. And so positive over here, in terms of, so in what they do, it can either be very positive or it can be very negative. And in how they do it, it can either be very positive or very negative. So let's just play in this box here. So people in this box, not very good at what they do, and they also go about it in a really bad way.
Yeah.
So from an organizational point of view, and even sometimes from a social point of view, how would we categorize the impact that they have? And I would say it's a negative impact. And what about the people that exist up here? So they go about things in a really positive way. However, they're not very good at what they do. I would say that's neutral. So, well, I'd say neutral because, they tend to be very nice people, but it'd be neutral sliding towards negative over time because people will get frustrated because they don't really produce much. They're not really good at anything. From an organizational point of view, this is often the challenging area. So people in here really good at what they do, but tend to go about it in a negative way. They can have an adding impact because they do bring some value. These could be people that make great sales, people that are great with productivity. So they can add value, but again, I would suggest that over time, it will drift towards the negative, simply because the way they go about doing things can often be destructive. Clearly, there's no surprises here. What we're looking for is what goes on up in this area. And what makes the difference here is people have a multiplying impact operating there. Not only are they good at what they do, but how they go about it enables other people to be good at what they do as well. And from an organizational point of view, those people that operate there are a real asset. So how can we what will it take to be able to operate more up in a multiplying, being more as a multiplying character rather than simply adding or being neutral and definitely not wanting to have a negative impact? And for me, this comes down to, let me take that share off. For me, this comes down to how we have conversations. I think this is going to be, it was becoming already the critical skill of the 21st century, is looking at how do we have conversations with people. Now that might sound strange because we have conversations all the time, day in, day out, we're always talking. But maybe we'll take a look at a very simple example. So I'm sure that a lot of you online now will maybe be able to relate to having children or nieces and nephews or being around little people. So I've got an example here from a few years ago when my son was much smaller. He must have been about 5 or 6. And I was watching him doing his homework. I just walked past as he was working away and I looked at it, and the handwriting was not very good. It really wasn't. And that's not his strength. However, even the fact that it wasn't his strength, it really wasn't very good. So imagine yourself in that situation. You're walking past, you see someone that you care about, that you would like to help, and the handwriting that they're displaying is not as good as it could be. So here's a chance for you to get your fingers working and maybe type something. I just wonder, it doesn't have to be long explanations, but what sort of things would you say? What sort of things might you say if you saw that situation and you were trying to help? And there's no right or wrong with this. It's just interested in the variation that there might be. So I'll just, okay, so give instructions. Someone's saying it's okay to have bad handwriting, but practice more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, asking if he's happy with the writing style. Oh, I like that. Can you please help me read it? Okay, someone saying would say nothing, just practice with him. Okay, so you see, there's a whole variety of things there, and I'm not saying that any of those are right. I'm not saying that any of those are wrong. And I like that. See, that's coming from my world. Practice, practice, practice. It's good. But okay, I tell you what we'll do is I just want to pause that for a moment. So we'll come back to the handwriting, but I got something else that I want to ask you, and this will require you to, now that you've got your fingers working, this will require you to do a little bit of a bit more typing. So let me just do this, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture some of what you type. So my question for you is this: how do you feel? What goes on inside of you? What are your feelings? What are your thoughts when you're working at your very best? What goes on inside of you? Something self-motivation, joyful. Yeah, you can do the best. Okay, and some pride. Seeing lots of time, but very focused. Yeah. And a great deal of satisfaction. Happy and confident and being able to improve things further. Like it. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, we got satisfaction again. It's good. So I'm sure you can all relate to that feeling of when we're working well and it's going great, it gives us motivation, that encouragement to work harder, that feelings of satisfaction. Okay, that's nice. I will, well, I'm going to use my memory today. I'm going to try and remember that list. And so some of the things on that list, I'm going to use your memories as well, because I'm sure your memories are better than mine. So just remember what was there. Okay, so a different question, keeping those fingers working, different question now. And I'm going to make this, I'll deliberately make it a bit more extreme, simply just for the sake of time. How do you feel? What feelings go through you? What thoughts do you have when you're being told what to do? And then let's make it extreme, especially if you don't even agree with what you're being told. So you have a completely different opinion, but maybe due to personal power, authority, so you don't really have any say in it. Someone's just telling you what to do. I appreciate that's extreme, and we may not often have to, hopefully we don't often have to put up with that, but how do you feel? Okay, so some depends on who's telling and might understand it and accept the challenges, but agitated, some resistance, reluctance. Okay, makes us examine the sort of condition we're in. Mm-hmm. Disempowered, yeah. So there's enough on that list to actually be able to say, look at the difference between the two lists that we just created there. On the one hand, we were saying that when we're working and we're feeling at our best, there's feelings of satisfaction, motivation, wanting to do more. And on the other hand, when we're being told, while it might depend on the circumstance and who's doing the telling, but I'm seeing things of disempowered, reluctance, resistance, and agitated. So here's a question. If we're looking at people doing well, looking at people performing, and wanting to help people move to the next level, how does someone produce their best? How does someone really excel if they are feeling disempowered, if they are feeling agitated, if they are feeling a sense of resistance and reluctance? It's just not possible. Now, I know I made that question about telling quite extreme, but it's the same. Whether we are telling in a very extreme way, then we get these reactions in an extreme way. But the telling might be a bit gentler. It might not be seen as direct telling. It might be advising or suggesting or sharing of our experience. But the side that it falls on is still the same. And even when we ask questions that are very leading, we might ask questions like, do you think it would be a good idea if, or have you ever thought about doing it this way? It's still telling. So the point I'm making here is we work from our perspective and transmit that out. It might sometimes get us a result, and historically it always used to, because the world was different. But going forwards, this way of communicating, of transmitting out and being all about the transmission, it's just not working anymore. And it definitely does not help people to be able to perform at their best. What we need to be able to do is find a way of having that conversation be much more two-way. And I don't just mean, us speaking and the other person speaking. I mean, engaging the brain of the other person, using where their brain is at, using what's going on for them to help shape how the conversation moves. And that's a very different way of holding a conversation. And it's a way that is often not. And I've worked in organizations all over the UK and around a lot of the world. And I can tell you now, it's a skill which just really is not there. Some people are now recognizing it and beginning to move in that direction, but typically it's not a skill. And why would it be? Because we have not been taught how to do it. And I'm not claiming that, I operate in this way or do my best to operate in this way because I didn't really have any choice. Circumstances meant I had to find a new way to operate if I was going to still add value, because I couldn't rely on knowledge. Because in doing what I do, everybody that I work with is better than me. Every organization I work in, people there have more knowledge than I have. So if my experience was my only currency, I would very quickly cease to be able to add value. So before we come back to the handwriting example, what I'd like you to do is this. I'd like you to think of an example for yourself, and not to share this, but just think about this. Think of an example where you have been telling or maybe advising or suggesting something to somebody else. And this could be at work, it could be at home, it could be social, it doesn't matter. But where have you been telling, advising, suggesting? So in other words, transmitting. And it's not really been working that well. It's not really been having the impact that you want it to have. And if you can bring that example to mind, then just keep it in mind, and we'll come back to that in a little bit. But what we'll do now is let's go back to the handwriting. And so some of the examples and suggestions that you wrote up beforehand were perfectly good. And combinations of those things I had done and may do in future in similar situations. But I just want to share with you the essence of what I did on that occasion, and not for the point of saying that it's right, but really to be able to get your opinion on, well, the question I will ask you at the end is simply this, is really, what was I trying to cause him to do? So the first thing I did, I just asked him, is that the best handwriting that you can do? And not in an aggressive or accusatory way, it was just a genuine, is that the best handwriting you can do? And he said no. So I said, well, what, if your teacher was looking at that, what mark, let's say a mark out of 10, what mark out of 10 would your teacher give you if they were looking at that handwriting? And he had a look and he had a think, and he said, yeah, I think 5 out of 10. So I said, okay. I said, well, look, we both know that handwriting That's not your great strength. You've got other great strengths, but that's not one of them. But so being realistic, what mark would you like your teacher to give you when she looks at your handwriting? And he said, I'd like to at least get a 7. So I said, okay, that's interesting. So what would need to be different? What would the teacher need to see differently to move the mark from a 5 to a 7? And he thought about it and he said, well, it needs to be on the line more consistently because some's above the line and below the line and through the line. Maybe if the letters were the same size, and maybe if I shaped the letters better. So I said, okay. And are you happy to have a go at that? He said, yes. So I left him to it. I came back afterwards just out of interest to have a look, and you could see on the page where we had had the conversation. It just changed immediately. So here's my question. I'm not necessarily saying that that was a perfect way of doing anything. My question to you is this: what was I trying to cause him to do? What do you think? It's time for your fingers to go to work again. Who's going to get in there first? Okay, so I'm seeing motivate. Find his own motivation. I'm seeing motivate again. And now I'm seeing the ones which really, and I'm not saying motivation isn't right, but the 2 next comments there, to make him think. That's all that I was trying to do. Just trying to make him think. Why? Because if he thinks, he can own it. If he can assess it for himself, then guess what? He doesn't need me. And so there were times after that conversation when I wasn't even at home, but we could have a conversation on the phone if I was away working, and I could ask, what's your handwriting like today? And we had a common language. You look at it and go, yeah, I think maybe this is a 6 out of 10, or this is a 7 out of 10. And it gave us the dialogue, and we could have conversations around that without me even needing to be there. But that only worked because the conversation was designed to make him think, so that he had his own internal calibration. And when people have their own internal calibration, then that enables them to perform at a whole new level. That's what enables it to go forward. If it relies on being told, having suggestions, being advised from the outside, then that creates a dependence. And that is not the best way to help people to move forward. It's not the most productive way to have conversations. And so for me, I do this all the time. I do my best to do it. I do it all the time. I do my best to do it all the time. So I give you another example. We were at a training camp, and interesting to see, we've got someone on today from Johannesburg, because I remember used to fly into Johannesburg to do training camps up in Potchefstroom. But more recently, we've done them down in the south, in Stellenbosch, just outside of Cape Town. One year, I think 2016, I was there with Richard, and we had some very good training. He produced some very good sessions. We were back in 2017, and on one of the days, the weather was exactly the same as it had been the year before. And I mean exactly, same temperature, same wind direction, same everything. So I thought, I'm going to repeat the session we did on this day last year and just see if we've got any progress. So I looked through my notes, and I thought the session we were going to do, was 3 runs over 220 meters with 18 minutes recovery between them. That's not the important bit. The important bit is that when he ran this session last year, he produced times of 26.5 seconds. So I'm thinking, half a second in the world of sprinting is a big change. So I'm thinking if we can get close to half a second difference, that would be good. So around 26 flat would be nice. So he does the first run, and I'm amazed that it comes out in 25.5, much faster than he's ever done before. And my concern with this was when you push your body to that level, it's not about fatigue, but your nervous system takes a very big hit. And so my concern was that his nervous system would now be so hit. So it would be so hard on his nervous system that he would not be able to produce 2 more runs at that intensity. So I thought, okay, take the recovery, see what happens. Now, while he was resting, the wind literally changed direction, north to south. And so getting him to then run into the wind would ruin the whole thing, because it wouldn't be an equal comparison. So I had to very quickly go to the other side of the track and measure out the 220, because the marks are not the same on both sides. But because I have a lot of experience at doing these things, I worked it out. And so we were ready. So he does the second run, and exactly as I expected, could not reproduce 25.5. He actually produced 27.1, which was quite a lot slower. So I'm now thinking we may as well stop this now, because I don't think doing any more of these will work. But in my usual way, I just asked him how he was feeling and how he felt that run went. I was very surprised with his response, because he told me that, yeah, not as good as the first one, because I lost control coming off the bend, and so that affected my speed in the straight, but still good. So I'd say 25.9. And I showed him the stopwatch and said, no, that was 27.1. I think your system is just tired from the first run, so I'm not even sure we should do any more. And he just looked at me and said, no, I ran 25.9. And I looked back and said, no, stopwatch is quite clear, you ran 27.1. But he just refused to accept it. Now, you've not met him, but I can tell you, I'm very short, he's very tall and very big, so I wasn't going to argue too much. But he was so insistent, I just said, okay, well, take the recovery and see how you feel when the recovery time is over. But he was so insistent that I thought, let me go and check where I put that mark. And I went and I checked, and guess what? I put it in the wrong place. And it wasn't 220 meters. I'd actually made him run 231 meters. So it goes to show I'm not so clever. But here's the interesting part. He ran 27.1. And if you take that figure of 27.1, divide it by 231, which is what I made him run, and multiply it by 220, which is what he thought he ran, it actually comes out to 25.81. And he was there telling me, Coach, I'm telling you now, I just ran 25.9. So he was less than 1/10 of a second out from having covered 1/8 of a mile the other way around the track. And that's what happens when you cause people to think about what they're doing. When you don't just tell, advise, suggest, give feedback, do the norm, just working from knowledge and experience and stats, but you find a way to cause their brain to work. You find a way and hold conversations in a way that challenges them to think about what's going on, to think about what they're doing, to be able to self-analyze the performance. And when people can self-analyze, that's what enables them to take it to the next level. That's what really adds value. But that means holding conversations in a very different way. We haven't got time on this call for me to go into all the detail on that, but we have got enough time for me to do a little bit of something. But before we even do that, I asked you earlier to think of a situation where you have been telling, advising, suggesting, and it hasn't quite been working. So in that situation, here's my question to you, and you don't necessarily need to type anything to this, but maybe it's something to think about. My question to you would be this: what is it that the other person is not aware of? Or maybe what is it that they're not getting? Or it might simply be, what is it that the other person needs to think about? Because you just telling them is not going to make any difference. There's something that if they think about it, it might, and here's the thing, no guarantees, but it might change their perspective. It might cause them to see things in a different way. That's the best chance that you've got. So what is it that they need to think about that might give them a different perspective? And if that's what they need to think about, then maybe what's the question you need to ask them to cause them to think about it? Not the question to ask them so that they agree with you and do what you want them to do, because you can't control people. That just doesn't work. But what's the question that if you ask it effectively, think in that area, and if they think in that area, it might give them the opportunity to see things differently, because it's only when they see things differently that they will behave or behave differently, make different choices, choose different actions. It all comes down to thought. And this is the key skill. How do we have conversations that generate thought in other people? So now, a little something for you to do. This is where you will need to do some writing, if you can. If it's not convenient, then that's okay. It's just, this works better if you actually write. Just the way that it helps the brain to work. So I'm not with you. I can't see you. You're spread all over the world. But here's what I want to do. I'm just going to ask you some questions. That's all I want to do. And I'd like you to write the answers to the questions down. Not the questions themselves, just your answers. And you don't need long answers, just brief notes, because it's only you that will be looking at this. And I'm not going to ask you to share this at all. So this is just for you. And this is a shortened version of something that I often do with people. So because we don't have a lot of time, I will just do a very short version. So we'll have to see how, let's see how effective just a short version is. So if I'm going to ask you some questions and you're going to write the answers down, you need a topic. You need a topic you need something to be thinking about in order to answer the questions about. Now, what topic can you choose? Actually, you can choose anything. It can be about work, it can be about home, it can be about career, it doesn't matter. You can choose any topic you like. So another way of looking at this might be, what is there that is happening in your life right now where you would value having a little bit of quality thinking time on that topic? So it could be something that's going very well and you'd want to work out how to make it even better. Or it could be something that's maybe not going so well and you want to work out how to move it forward. Or it could be something that's just a little bit stuck. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world. But if this is going to be productive at all, there are 3 conditions that the topic you choose needs to fit. And the first is, you must have some control or influence over the topic. I don't expect it to be 100%, but you must have some. So choosing a topic like, it would be great if we could have world peace. Um, you can't leave this conversation and go and make that happen. So, that is something that is outside of your immediate control. So don't choose that. You need to choose something that you have some immediate control or influence over. The second thing is it needs to mean something to you. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world, but it needs to mean something to you. And what do I mean by that? So look, we've all got things that need to happen, and they may be important, but they don't really mean anything to us. So I could use the example of tending to the garden. I know that over here anyway, winter's coming, the grass needs cutting again. If I don't do it, it will just be a mess. It's an important task that needs to be done. Do I really care about cutting the grass? No, I don't. That is not my thing, but it needs to happen. So I guess what I'm saying is don't choose something that, even if it is important, needing to happen, if you don't personally are not invested in it, don't care about it, then it's not a great topic to choose for this. So choose something that means something to you. And the third condition is it needs to be something that's still worth thinking about. We've all got things going on in our lives where, we've done all the thinking and it now just needs action. So a topic like that is not really helpful. So choose something that is, so the three things: choose something that you have some control or influence over. That's something that means something to you personally, and something that's still worth thinking about. And so long as it fits those three, then any topic could be fine. I'm seeing someone's written down that looks like demonstration. I'm almost reluctant to give an example because I don't want to lead where your thinking goes, but some people think about relationships. Some people might think about, well, actually, here's another way of looking at it. What is there going on in your life where you would like it to be a bit different? Where you're not 100% happy with how something is? I've not really come across many people that tell me that they are 100% happy with every single aspect of their life. You don't have to be deeply unhappy about it, but there's probably going to be something where you think, yeah, I'd like that to be a little bit different. The third point was, yeah, something that's still worth thinking about. So, I don't know, as an example, it could be that you might want to choose a topic of where to go for your next holiday, but you already know which country you might, or region you're going to go to. You already know when you're going. You already know which hotel you're going to be staying in. You even know which room in the hotel you want. The only thing you haven't done is pick up the phone and book it. Well, that's not a great topic because it doesn't really require much first action. So something that is still worth thinking about. And it can be a habit or work related. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay. So in the interest of time, I'm going to press on. I'm going to just assume that you've got a topic in mind. So as I say, I'm going to try and go through this fairly quickly. So apologies if I'm too quick. I can't see how you're writing, but I'll try and do it at a reasonable tempo. So you're just writing down your answers. Just brings will be fine.
Okay.
And if I ask a question, sorry, I missed that. If I ask a question which doesn't quite fit your topic, then don't worry about it. Just let it go. So here's the first question. So as I say, you don't give me an answer, just write it down. What for you would be the ideal outcome with this topic of yours? If you could have it any way that you want it to be, what would be the ideal outcome? And being realistic, by when would you like to have that happen? Being realistic. And what do you think is the first step along the way, the first thing that needs to happen, or if it happened, would tell you were heading in the right direction? What's the very first step? So sorry, when I say write these down, just write them for yourself. You don't need to put them on the chat. Just write them for yourself. So what's the very first thing that needs to happen that will tell you are heading in the right direction? You need to be specific about that. And again, being realistic, by when would you like to see that first step in place? By when? What time frame would you like for that very first step? Now, you can choose to focus on the first step, or you can choose to focus on the overall outcome. It doesn't matter, but I would suggest one or the other, not jumping between the two. But whichever it is, whether it's the ideal outcome or the first step, if that's what you would like to have happen, what will tell you when it's actually happened? What will be your evidence? What will prove to you that the ideal outcome or the first step has been achieved? What will tell you? And what's telling you, what's convincing you? What is convincing you that you can actually achieve this? What's making you think that? What's convincing you that you can actually achieve this? And if you didn't do anything with this, nothing changed with this, what would you lose? What would you miss out on if nothing with this changed? And for some reason, this was the topic that came to your mind. So what makes this topic important to you? What makes this topic matter to you? And who else is involved in this? Who else is involved in this topic of yours? And what do you think is getting in the way of you moving this forward? What's the biggest hurdle or obstacle to you progressing this topic? And if you had to be really honest with yourself, what is it about you that might not be helping? What is it about you that could be getting in the way? And what if you suddenly found yourself with, I don't know, lots of resources, whatever resources are applicable to your topic? It could be time, it could be personnel, it could be finance. But if you had limitless resources, what else could you do? What would you like to do to try and make this happen, to try and move this forward? And today's Sunday, so what if you had only 1 week to make some progress with this? You only had 1 week to make some progress, even if it's tiny progress. What might you have to consider doing? What option would come to mind if you had to make some progress in just, you only had 1 week to do it? And finally, if you were really serious about trying to move this forward, then what do you think is the first thing that you need to give some serious consideration to? With everything that you've just gone through, with everything you've just thought about, where would you start? Where would you start? Okay, enough writing. So now I have another question for you. And this time it would be interesting to see you type and see what responses are there. I'm just interested in what did those questions make you do? Okay, some answers start coming through. Okay, so reflect, evaluate yourself, reflect and find solutions. Okay. Self-introspection. Okay, find some self-confidence. And self-motivation. Ooh, get rid of all the excuses, like that. Move towards action. And just begin, create a blueprint. Wow. Can-do attitude and, okay, analysis. Stop procrastinating. Yeah, I'm all over procrastinating. That's me. That is me. Well, look, thank you for those responses. That's really interesting. I'm hoping that it wasn't just a little exercise for no point. I'm hoping that you actually found that useful. But here's what is interesting, is that we saw, you know, talking about reflection, confidence, motivation, just beginning something, moving towards action. And all of that sounds really positive, and all of that sounds really helpful. But the key question I have at this point is, how much do I actually know about your topic? And I mean, because I can't hear you, the obvious answer is nothing. But just look at that list, look at all those things that just came out, and yet I know absolutely nothing about it. And what was the only thing that I did? I just asked you some questions that made you think. So with no knowledge, no experience of what's going on with your topic and what's going on in your head, we could generate all of that. Now, if I did have some knowledge, I'm not saying that's not useful, but it depends on how we use the knowledge. We can use the knowledge to tell, to suggest, to advise, because we have the experience and we think we're right, and that's the standard way of holding conversations. Or we can use the knowledge to provoke thought in others so that they can move things forward themselves. So it's not that knowledge is a bad thing, but typically the way we use knowledge leads our conversation style to go one way. And going forward, that is not particularly helpful. Going forward, that is not the best way to add value. And going forward, that is definitely not the best way to help others be their best selves. And so if we're looking at our currency, if we're looking at what makes us valuable, it's not only being good at what we do, but it's being good at helping others to move forward and progress and be good at what they do. But that requires having the ability to hold conversations in a different way, and that is a very different skill. So all that I was hoping to do today was give you some insights into that, and just seeing what can really happen if all that you can do is cause someone to think. And that is the skill for the 21st century, the ability to generate thought. So wherever, if you think back to that situation where you may have been telling, advising, suggesting, and it just hasn't been moving forward in the way that you would like, what about trying a little bit less telling, a little bit less suggesting, a little bit less advising, and a little bit more trying to get them to think, not to get them to agree with you, not to get them to come to your way of thinking, just to think. I didn't know what you were thinking about, and look at that list of things that we created. All that I was doing was just causing you to think. And thinking, being able to generate thought, is going to be the key 21st century skill that will help us to differentiate and help us in our own right to be the valuable assets that people want to have around, whether that's socially, domestically, or organizationally. I hope that's made some sense, and I thank you very much for joining in and participating and writing so well and sending so many messages. And at this point, I will hand back to Rowena.
Thank you so much, Keith.
The purpose for the video is really to say that sometimes if all that we do is tell, advise, and suggest, it limits our perceptions. So what you're about to see is someone performing in sport. But what makes this, well, we do it the other way around. If this person came to you and asked you how high they could jump, I'm not sure many of you would say 1.96 meters, which is about over the average door in a house. But when you cause someone to be able to self-evaluate and see the picture themselves, then any performance is possible. So, as I say, what you're about to see is 1.96 96, which, to put it into context, is about the door. When they own their performance, people can do amazing things.
We still have one question, which is if you can read it and if you wish.
Yeah. Are there different? Yeah, there are many different conversation styles, Manisha. The challenge, or the thing to think about, is what is most effective. So I'm not saying that one size fits all, but what I am saying is that if in the way that we converse with people, we spend most of our time on transmit, then it doesn't make us very effective. Why? Because when we transmit and we want to make a point, our brains are very good at filtering. And so what our brains will do is they will filter for things that match the point that we want to make. So if we want to convince someone that it is hot outside, no matter what they say, our brains will just dismiss anything that doesn't match with our argument. And so when we're talking to people, we miss all of the key information, we miss all of the key clues that help us to help them, that help us to be productive. But when we learn how to have a conversation which is properly two-way, which actually takes account of their thought, then it makes it very different.